Welcome, folks on YouTube. I am doing a U.S.-Mexico run with someone else. May recontinue the other one at some point, but I've learned lessons in the last one. Explaining to this guy, you prefer to go by
Joe?
Joe here. Um, so I'm explaining a little bit about the Mexico stuff. Now I'm a lot more familiar, and Joe's, I'd say, a more experienced Hearts Iron player, so I won't need to hold his hand through all the Mexico stuff, and I'm more experienced with the United States at this point, so I'll probably be able to actually not script the U.S. pass like I kind of did last time with the naval treaty. I didn't realize the one naval treaty could crush your stability if you ignore it. Literally, I lost 20% last game and a bunch of political power because the UK kept threatening war against me if I didn't comply with the naval treaty, and I'd lose stability to just put them off and not like face them down.
Mm.
Should have called their bluff early on, but I think actually no, I had to withdraw from the treaty to call her bluff. It's a mess, and you need a bunch of political power. So Mexico's first choice after the plan of Agua Prieta is well, Jefe Mexico or Exile Calais. They can also do the legacy of revolution stuff or ban political militias. Um, legacy of revolution is a somewhat more dangerous path, you might say. You stuck with a political army, but it does enable the red shirts, which if you're going communist, that will give you daily support, and left-wing paramilitaries will give you planning speed and some other stuff. Um, it does lead
Mm.
to the Cadelo rebellion happening sooner, because if you depolitize the army and do your Escuela Superior de Guerra, it delays the Cadelo rebellion. Doesn't stop it, just gives you more time. So does depoliticizing the army. So these things can be used to buy time, but that facing that civil war earlier can be better. I think Joe, you're familiar with how you can sometimes milk civil wars for build slots a little bit in Army XP.
Yeah.
Yeah, and Mexico's industry is pathetically weak at the start, so you can actually let the warlord sit. He gets. I should have known because I'd seen it before, but I never mentally know this. But now I know this for sure. They always start with Tamaulipas and Coahuila, your two northeastern states. So if you just cordon off those states before the Civil War, it even makes sense because Cadillo is named the strong man of San Luis. So San Luis Potosi starts off as his capital, and he controls Monterrey, Reynosa, Matamoros, and the state and the rural areas around those victory points. So you can literally just cordon off the area before the Civil War with dig in a bunch of infantry. I suggest doing grand battle plan for that because trench warfare will really help. And just have you should have a infantry template that's got a really small division, which is good for defending, but of course terrible for attacking. And you can just dig in. The one thing I suggest is with Chihuahua, instead of defending right on the border of that state, defending at the river line by Chihuahua, because that way you have mountains to defend and a river where you don't have mountains. It's
Yeah.
easier to hold there. And, empty desert provinces don't matter. It's not like there's anything there. There's not even a rail line in those provinces. It's empty land. No one lives there.
Okay.
But yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. The point is, the Civil
I
War can
see.
easily be contained. You can let them do a couple build slots and factories and then take them
Yeah.
down.
So
Uh,
they only start with Tamaulipas and Coahuila.
yeah,
Coahuila. I don't speak Spanish.
yes.
Oh,
Coahuila
that's not too bad.
and Tamaulipas, and they start with a relatively small part of your army. Unlike if you get the communist uprising civil war, which the one that's not via focus, which the other guy got, and that can get random
All right.
states and it can be a big deal. But
Should I
the
cordon that off now, or is there gonna be other fighting I do before that? Do you
it,
think?
that will probably be more in a year into the game. So I would just put divisions where they won't suffer supply attrition and where they can get
Ah,
heat
okay.
acclimatization. I would suppose, or not get it, depending on whether you're going to send them to a cold or a warm climate. Spain is warm.
Probably warm.
Yeah, but the Spanish Civil War, you probably want to stick them down in the Yucatan Peninsula, wherever they have
Right.
good supply and warm weather. Although I'll give you military access, and you can stick them in Panama as well and Puerto Rico. Those are oh yeah, moment one things I didn't do before is the first thing I do is give Puerto Rico independence
Yeah.
as a puppet, not as a full independence, because yeah, that's quicker focus. Because then they'll get all their extra build slots and stuff, and that's powerful. So, hmm, take a quick look at my artillery MIO and stuff. They've reworked the MIOs a little in the recent patch. So not this latest one. The tank MIOs. You should see. I don't know if you have an infantry tank MIO, Joe.
Um, infantry tank MIO.
Infantry tank designer.
I don't believe so.
Yeah.
You have heavy tank designer, standardized production, fast tanks designer, and medium tank manufacturer.
Oh, do you have a fast tanks designer?
Yeah, I have a fast tanks designer.
Oh, that's new. Yes, I think Mexico got new MIOs in this. I
Yeah, the
would have to.
Russo Mexican tank designs.
Yeah, I would have to double check, but in one of the hot fixes, they actually changed the MIOs, which is unusual for a hot fix. That's
Oh
normally
yeah.
a.
Huh.
Yeah, some nations got new MIOs that didn't have them, and they reworked Germany's Henschel one in particular got screwed in my ongoing single player game because now
Yeah.
they reworked they actually improved the design because they would have traits that only applied to light or medium tanks or heavy, and now they apply to all. But I already had like traits for light tanks, and they just disappeared without getting the points back. It would kind of stink. um,
So I've got a Cadillo rebellion in 149 days.
yeah, so that's that thing I should explain while you're, I guess, starting on the planet of Aqua Preta. And I suggest one thing to keep in mind is don't hire the communist advisor right away. That's the other guy did
Right.
because you don't want you got to be
Okay.
careful about building communist support too quickly because if I think they get to like 60%, then you can start to like a
Yeah.
hidden clock to like get an event for a civil war, and you can either do a referendum and lose stability or say it'll blow over and then you have a certain frame of time to flip by a focus before a civil war
I see.
starts.
So
So
yeah, I'll hold off on that.
yeah,
But the Cadillo rebellion is where they take these two states. Is
uh,
that what you're saying?
yes,
Or is that?
and
Yeah.
so
Okay.
that'll start off. You start off with Cadillo tensions, I think moderate, right? Yeah, moderate, because
Yes.
I'm looking at yeah your stability effects. I can see it. Just
Oh, they'll just switch to high in
it'll become
149.
high and then very high,
Yeah,
and then after very high, you get
I
the
see.
civil war when very high modifiers. So you have over a
Okay.
year before it happens.
And I just have to
Um,
get to a certain focus before then to prevent it entirely.
I wouldn't. Yeah, so I wouldn't suggest the focuses. It's better to face them because you
Yeah.
don't lose any key advisors or generals. Really, I'm not sure you lose any generals except maybe one level one guy with terrible traits. So it's not. You don't need to worry about losing anything. You don't lose like hardly any divisions. It's a pretty easy. Most of the divisions spawn out of thin air, so it's a fairly easy civil war that doesn't hurt you much. And you can milk it. But also, in terms of focus path, you would have to either support General Cadillo or you would have to arrest him. And if you arrest him, that requires purge the bureaucracy, which requires that you not take Jeff A. Maximo, which is strictly
Uh,
better. Bring Callas back into your administration. He's the former president as a field marshal in your army. He's a very talented military leader, and you get a national spirit that gives you 10% political power gain. Like it replaces Callistas with something that's a pure positive. You no longer have the construction speed debuff, and you actually gain 10% political power instead of losing 20. Um,
Oh,
it just if you do that, the only way you can avoid the Cadell rebellion is if you support General Cadell, and if you do that, then you can't like go the communist economic branch, which
I see.
means you can't
So you
get
just have to fight the civil war.
yeah. The best thing to do with the warlord, he's a fascist and he's has no respect for the rule of law. He's like literally a kleptocratic robber baron. Is just let him rise up and crush him. Um,
Yeah.
because in your economic tree, it goes National Bank, Agricultural Credit Union, which is the left. I mean, Agricultural Credit Bank, which is the left side. And liberalize the banking sector is, of course, the right side. I think the other guy didn't
Okay.
understand this. Liberalize means like neoliberalism. It means to
Yes.
deregulate. You know,
Mm-hmm.
if you would take the Agricultural Credit Bank, then you can do rent freeze, the worker militias, Party of the Revolution. That gets
Did
you
he
the.
go down the right path?
Hmm?
Did he go down the right path?
Oh no, he went down the left path. Although I had
Ah,
to
okay.
then went down the line. He's like, but I can't do liberalize the banking system now. And I had to like explain to him that liberalize means that's a right
Yeah.
wing path. That's not
Mm-hmm.
left wing.
Yeah.
Um, Left wing path is like a rent freeze and workers'
Mm-hmm.
rights and like rural schooling. It's investing
Yeah.
in the
I see.
most oppressed parts of the Mexican
Mm-hmm.
population. And then
Whereas, yeah, liberalize means capitalism.
yes, it means free market. It means unregulated capitalism,
Yeah.
and in
Yeah.
literal private armies.
Yeah.
Under the private armies, it's like
Yeah.
literally
There's
you
straight
let
up a privatization focus.
straight up warlords running the country as like almost neo
Yeah.
feudal. It's the worst possible version of capitalism. It's like armed thugs running the country. They're not even the government. Like
I see.
decentralized
Okay. So I'll probably want to go to the left path then,
with it. Yeah, with the economic.
and then
Uh,
yeah.
the
So
the worker
would I want to
militias.
go like Legacy of the Revolution or ban political militias?
Probably Legacy of Revolution. It's stronger in the long run
Yeah.
because then you can grab international struggle, revolution class warfare, Spanish Civil War refugees.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, well, you you can depoliticize the military. It's true. The ban political militias. The problem with that, besides, um, you actually get higher planning speed. Interesting is you won't get international struggle, which lets you send volunteers all around the world. The other way to do that is international peacekeepers, which you'd have to join, like, try and join the allies to be able to send volunteers. So you can send volunteers to Spanish Civil War earlier, and with the Legacy of the Revolution, and let's see, international struggle, revolution class war. Then it's the quicker way to get down to support Spain's loyalists, and then that gets a decision where you can send guns over
Okay.
to the Republican side. I believe in our three-player multiplayer game, you saw that I think I mentioned I kept getting guns from Mexico over and over, and it was like this little
Yeah.
event. I get like you received 200 infantry equipment from and it named the leader of Mexico at the time.
Mm-hmm.
It took me a little while because it didn't say it was from Mexico. It said it was from this guy, and it's the leader of It's from the president of Mexico. And like it took me a little bit to figure out what was happening. But I later, I went and loaded up Mexico and checked, and what was going on is they get a decision. I've confirmed this in the two-player thing I had that kind of just, I don't think that guy's ever going to play another session of it. Um,
Yeah.
Once you take support Spain's loyalists, or you could technically support the nationalists if you wanted instead. Um, that would be phalangist veterans. That would strengthen the church um, and give you fascist support. You probably wouldn't want to do that unless you were going fascist. But anyways, you get this decision and and it costs you 200 infantry equipment. That's all, and you either get army experience or you get navy experience from it. Either the rifles make it to Spain and the Republicans get rifles and you get Army XP, or they convoys get intercepted and you get Navy XP and they don't get the rifles. So
Ah,
yeah.
right.
Um, so it's a really good thing. It's a great way to get lots of Army experience because, most nations never can get enough Army XP for
Yeah.
doctrines and division templates and improving. Like, one thing I don't think people realize is you can, like, improve the designs of your mechanized equipment. It's the old, like, pre-designer thing. Like, before they made it so you could custom design tanks, you used to have something like this with tanks too. But where you can send Army XP for upgrades that are almost purely upgrades. And you can still do that with the mechanized equipment and the armored cars, I think. And it's really good to do that with, like, mechanized 3 late game. You can make them like 20 or 40% cheaper to make or something. And that comes at cost in reliability and armor, but you can also upgrade the reliability and armor, which makes it a net of like 20% cheaper to build or something. So it's really good, but it's very expensive in Army XP. Um, yeah, you can liberate the Antilles, which is where you demand that France, the Netherlands, and UK withdraw from the Caribbean. They can tell
Oh,
you to bug off. And last game, France was going communist, and they probably would have said yes to this. Probably. I
yeah.
don't know, because historically the French Communist Party was very anti decolonization.
Mm,
They were very like,
that sounds about right.
what?
Sounds like the French.
Their idea was that, stronger together, I think, and that if you, like, break off, like, if you decolonize, these countries would just get bullied by, like, the UK, which is probably true, but it was convenient the way they
I
were.
mean, they can still be in a defensive alliance without owning it.
Yeah, well, that's what Italy can do if they go communist, is they can form like a
Yeah.
defensive alliance with their former
Mm,
colonies, but they make them
okay.
puppets in that case.
Yeah. Well.
But yes, the French Communist AI will tend not to do that. They'll tend to try and core their former colonies, I believe.
Mm, okay.
So I don't know if France would accept leaving the Caribbean. England will if they go communist. If they go fascist, they'll probably tell you to screw yourself.
Mm,
And the Netherlands also depends on their political direction, obviously.
yeah.
I'd probably just say yes, or actually no, it disappears once they liberate Puerto Rico. So I won't actually get the event
Yeah.
anyhow, because it's based on Puerto Rico, and if I make Puerto Rico a state, it also doesn't apply to me. So I can either make them a state or give them independence.
Oh.
It's only
Huh.
if I keep them as a non-core territory that I get that event. And I'm gonna, before I unpause it, I'm gonna just immediately liberate them as a
Okay.
puppet. Even though that'll be a
What do
Democrat
you
puppet instead of a communist one. What?
What do you suggest I research?
You have like
Like,
2 slots, right?
yeah,
So
yeah.
you just have to do your industry,
Mhm.
construction one and basic tools or
I don't
whatever.
want to grab. I don't want to grab some research speed first. Electronic mechanical engineering.
No, because you need to start stockpiling inventory. You need to put
Okay.
what you've got on. Oh yeah, the other guy, he started
All
producing
right.
artillery, and then he didn't even add artillery. Like, you wouldn't add line artillery to any of his divisions.
Right. So
Ar-
construction one and basic machine tools.
Yeah, and I would just stockpile
All right.
lots of rifles, both for training new divisions, because you can train divisions as long as they have 20% equipment. You don't need to actually fill the artillery on your templates to train them. You can just
Yeah.
deploy them green, I'm sure you know. And,
I need I need fighters and close air support.
well, you already have small, like, undersized wings that aren't, you can just dismiss that. It just mean that you have
Yeah.
wings of less than 100 size.
Okay.
So, um,
It's not important.
what I might even do, I don't think the other guy I could have convinced to do this, but what I might even suggest doing is disbanding those air wings entirely and selling them on the international market. Someone will buy them, and your industry is really weak at the beginning.
Yeah, I don't
So
need
that'll,
planes anyway.
yeah, I mean,
Some handful of.
they make very little difference in your civil wars if you face them, and I can sell you one thing that the other guy did like a little bit, and I'll do with you if you're okay with it, is I'll sell you subsidized equipment. Like, I'll put up sales, tell you I'm going to do it. It'll be at a discounted price, and you can buy it before the AI grabs it. And
Hmm.
so you can buy, like, casts and fighters off of me later when you're about to go to war, and rifles so that you can divert them. Because I can't do lend lease for a long time, even though
Oh yeah.
even though I plan to probably do like limited interventionism eventually. After I can't do that. Once I do that, I can't. I lose access to my communist advisor, so I probably do that very late in the game. Um, like we're talking like 1942, I do limited interventionism because Japan won't attack me, so there's no other way I can really join the war. um, or
Okay.
I mean, well, I could take one of the communist focuses to like join the Comintern or whatever, but it
Yeah.
this allows me to get more war support and join the war on my terms. Um, or send volunteers before then. Sorry, but I'm getting ahead of myself. So I can use you to essentially launder equipment to Spain by selling you discount equipment at low prices, and then you send it to Spain like infantry equipment via those decisions to get a bunch of army XP or naval XP or both for doing it. So it's good. Um, but yeah, Jeff A. Maximo, Control Army gives you some stability. You get a couple events really early on that you can choose to strengthen or weaken the Catholic Church, right?
Yeah.
Now, strong Catholic Church gives you at first stability and later consumer goods
Won't
factory factor. Hmm?
won't weak church be replaced with atheist state though? When I
Yeah.
take
So
good church.
if you
I mean, I
take things,
assume.
it's like a
Yeah, I
balance
assume
of
that.
power mechanic. The whole thing. If you,
Ah. Okay.
so this is before they added balance of power mechanics, so I'm sure they would have actually used that.
I
Things
see.
that say like atheists are right now,
So
you're currently at weak, which is the second weakest
I
state for
see.
the Catholic Church, and you can strengthen up to assertive, powerful, and then
Yeah,
Catholic state, or weaken it down to atheist.
I
The
see.
more powerful the church is, at first your stability improves, and then your consumer goods factor assertive, you have +5 stability. At powerful, you just have fewer consumer goods, and at Catholic, you have even fewer consumer goods, but you also have a stability debuff. So you get the best civilian economy by strengthening the Catholic Church, and the best military economy by weakening them, because you'll have higher factory output at weak and atheist state. So
Okay.
early on, when you're doing your industrial snowball, there's no reason to weaken them. You want the Catholic Church on your side early while you're building Civ, and then later when you're like have a bunch of mill and you're not like
I see.
later in the war, then a weak church will help you.
I want to go
Just
state atheism later,
yes.
or at least just weak church, or do I want to go all the way?
If you go all the way to atheist, then you can have a civil war if your stability isn't really high. It
Is it
has to
worth it
it has to
potentially?
be no, it's not worth the civil war, which can be big and
Okay.
disruptive. I think your stability has to be over 70%, which is easy enough in peace by late game, but it's hard to be at over 70% stability while at war.
All
Because
right.
you, so, so you may want to not go weaker than weak church for a long time. I think you get most of your
Okay.
decisions. Like if you go to your decisions tab, and that's really important, you'll see a thing that's like the Catholic Church about it.
Yeah. Church
Um,
power.
yeah, and you have like when you're in the middle ranges, you have things that can either turn war support into stability or stability into war support. Um, I may even recommend that you early on because it'll give you political power and help your civ economy do war support into stability. You also have a set of decisions that can spend political power to gain war support and army XP, and decisions that give you just stability. So by having tons of political power from Jeff A. Maximo and not really like filling advisors too quickly and stuff, you can you can run a lot of these decisions and taking focuses that give you political power, like abolish capital punishment. It's 75 political power to gain 2.5% war support. So essentially, it's 150 political power to gain 5% war support, but you also gain some army XP as a byproduct, which is why it's better to repeal the Cowles Law than enforce it. Because you'll get 5% stability and you'll still get the same war support and you'll have a little political power left over that way, right?
Yeah,
So based on the
I see.
importance of stability and civilian economy, I might suggest Plano of Agua Prieta, Jeffe Maximo, and then running down to repeal the Callous Law, which will strengthen the Catholic Church and abolishing capital punishment. That'll let you get state education really early, which will get you a research slot, but it'll weaken the Catholic Church again. So you'll strengthen them and then
Oh,
weaken them, and you'll be right back where you started.
I see.
Yeah, because repealing capital punishment, that line will strengthen them, but then state education, like an atheist state education, will weaken them, obviously, and that'll get you get ZFO, which is a prerequisite to industrial promotion, Defensa, and eventually another research slot once you have 50 Civ
And
or
I wouldn't want to go Knights of Columbus or
50.
Legion of Christ because those are democratic and fascist, right?
Yeah, Knights of Columbus is like the moderate position on the church. You can do it whether you're
Mm. Well,
communist or democratic, but it does favor
yeah, it will
democracy
give
support.
democracy support.
Yeah, and I mean you can do that and still flip communists later,
Would
but
would I just have to keep running the democratic raids?
yeah, you would be well. You do have an advisor; it gives you, and you have a bunch of national spirits to give you communist support. So you'd just be stuck with a permanent democratic, like it would stabilize at like I don't know, 20% democratic, 20%, 80%
Ah,
communist, or something late game,
okay.
and
Yeah.
then you could run raids whenever you wanted to temporarily reduce democratic and get some base stability out of it.
Hmm.
So it's
Okay.
not terrible, but the law industrial promotion is really powerful, as is Nafensa, especially when you have a
Yeah.
really terrible factory count. Like something that gives you two civ, like law industrial promotion, will actually represent a very large proportionate increase in your economy when it's so weak. By the same measure, revolutionary women is very powerful. That gives you three civ, and that comes after legacy of revolution. So you may want to state education will give you a research slot. Revolutionary women will give you three civ. So those are really good things to get early. Whereas Confederation Mexican Workers and rent freeze to give you a bunch of political power. So you can run decisions at the Catholic Church and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, but you're going to get events early on whether to strengthen or weaken the church. And you're probably going to want to strengthen them because to take anti-disestablishmentarianism, the Catholic Church needs to at least be assertive. So you have to strengthen them at least
Ah,
once.
okay.
And since you can't, there's no neutral path. You want to strengthen them both times, or otherwise they'll either be back at weak or they'll be atheist. Um, so if you take on both events, strengthen them, and grab anti-establishmentarianism, that will give you decisions transatlantic the church that can be used to slide the balance of power towards the Catholic Church. And
Well, I
that's,
can, while I still am able to nationalize church lands, so I can switch back whenever I want.
yes, you can do either one of
Okay.
those at any time when you're in the
And
middle
these are repeatable?
ranges. Yeah, they're repeatable, infinitely repeatable, as
Okay.
are the things that give
Sweet.
you war support and army experience,
Mm-hmm.
which is really powerful. It means Mexico can, given enough time, reach 100% base war support in any game
Yeah.
and
Nice.
100% base stability.
As long as I
It's
have weak church.
so if you rewrite the Constitution of 1917, you get um, two decisions that are exact mirrors.
Oh, right.
10
Yes.
public mass and parting Cristero fighter, and that's an exact mirror of the weak church ones where you assassinate Cristero fighters and prosecute the clergy.
Ah,
And that public
okay.
mass gives you stability, just straight stability, base
Hmm.
stability, and parting Cristero fighters gives you war support and army experience. They're exactly the
All
same
right.
thing as the one as assassinating and prosecuting, just flavored differently, and
Yeah.
you have to have at least powerful church to take those. So if you grab
Wait.
anti-establishmentarianism, it allow
So
you
I
to.
can just repeatedly pardon and pardon slash assassinate the same people just over and over again?
Well, it's different people. There's the Cristero
Yeah.
Rebellion is in your past, and there's like
Okay.
hundreds of
So there's just
people.
okay. So for gameplay wise, there's just an infinite number of them for me to.
Yeah.
Kill/fire.
Realistically, there's probably a couple dozen famous ones, but you're not going to run the decision 12 times or 20 times. So
Yeah,
for
fair enough.
gameplay purposes, it's unlimited.
Okay.
Um, there's no limit. There probably should be like you can only run this decision up
Yeah,
to 50 times or
yeah.
something,
Like,
but
yeah, we're all out of Cristeros. You can't do anymore.
yes. But I mean, historically there were
Yeah,
tens of thousands of them, so you
yeah,
could just be
yeah.
partying a lowly private for all anyone knows. It doesn't say
All
that
right.
these are Cristero generals that you're partying.
Yeah. Okay. And
Um,
what should I just build some Civ factories straight off the bat? I
uh,
only have 8.
the technique that I suggested, and I think I explained, and you did this with Portugal before, and it's generally good, is to pick some states with a lot of potential build slots and relatively high infrastructure to begin with. I think Mexico City is probably the best candidate, and to max the
It's
infrastructure.
only full though.
Oh, it's currently full on build slots.
Yeah.
So yeah, when you
It's
get
so pathetic.
concentrated in street one, you'll get build slots there, I guess. But
Yeah.
until then, pick states with lots of free build slots and max infrastructure and then max the civ. Although, how many
All
civ
right.
do you have for construction lines right now?
I have 5 free.
That's right. So you
8
may want to
8
build,
total.
yeah. So you may want to get a sixth factory. Like just start off with a civ. When you get six, then you may want to do infrastructure and then civ. Is I think
Okay.
people have calculated it. It's like if you're below, five or below, you want to just build straight civ, and if you have six or more, you want to build infrastructure first
Yeah.
and then civ.
All right.
That's ignoring that some of states have natural resources that make the
Should I
infrastructure a little better.
should I fill up? I've got some 1 out of 2 states. Should I just fill one of those up first?
The most cost effective are to pick states that are 2 out of 5 or 3 out of 5 to pick the ones with higher
I've got
infrastructure. Because
the only 2 out of 5 I have.
oh, you're talking about build slots or infrastructure level.
Well, for my very first build slots, sorry,
Oh,
because I'm gonna build a Civ factory straight off the bat,
yeah.
and it's good to get the max so I can use that one decision, right? Because I've got a 1 out of 2 I could build
So
in.
it's got to be the max to. If you talk about regional industrial integration, you can do that anywhere infrastructure is maxed, whether all the build slots are
Oh,
used or
it's
not.
infrastructure, not build slots. Never mind. So just build it anywhere. It doesn't matter.
Well, probably not one of the places you're going to
Well,
max the
yeah, yeah,
infrastructure because you're going to build civ there later.
right.
Um,
Okay.
so I'd pick a state that's if Mexico City, I think is the only place that has right now level 3 infrastructure in Mexico.
Yeah.
Everything else is level 2. So I
Hmm.
would pick somewhere that
I've got 2 states that are 1 out of 4 for build slots.
yeah, and the rest are probably I'm looking around. The rest are level the base slots are 2 or 4. I mean, I'm sure you know that the tech gives you 20% extra. So states that have like Mexico City is 6 slots and they're all filled, but it will get 1 slot as soon as you advance in
Yeah, once I
tech.
finish that thing.
But if it's
Yeah.
only got 4 slots, you won't gain another build slot when you gain the tech. It's 20% on that base level, not in
So
any extra
should I
slots.
build more infrastructure in Mexico City or one of the 1 out of 4 provinces in terms of
Uh,
build slots
well, if you're gonna go
before?
right to Civ, which would probably be good, you probably want to pick somewhere that's only got room for one factory and doesn't have any resources, because you probably won't develop that state any further. In the very south, you probably want infrastructure because you're gonna want to
Right.
push south later. So I would suggest, let's see, Baja's kind of vulnerable, and you may want to put coastal forts on it later. I'm trying to think.
Are you talking about where to build my infrastructure first?
Yeah. So I'm trying to think of good places. Well, no, Baja's already got an air base.
The only places that aren't going to revolt that have 4 build slots are Veracruz and Jalisco.
Oh no, I'm saying you probably want to build. You want to pick a state that's only got one free build slot and build a civ there, and then do the infrastructure somewhere
Yeah,
else.
yeah. I've Guerrero has 1 out of 2 build slots. That
Uh,
I can just slam a civ factory in there quick.
that one's got steel, so you might want to actually build up the infrastructure there. Anywhere else, it's only got one slot.
Yeah.
No resources. I've got your resource
Right,
map.
resources.
Maybe
Let me check.
Sonora? Does
That's
Sonora have?
visible in the infrastructure map, right?
Yeah, Chihuahua will get steel via focus. How many slots does Sonora and Baja have? And Durango, those are likely candidates.
Durango's 1 out of 2.
Cool.
So we'll go with Durango because the other ones are 0 out of 2.
Yeah.
All right, I'll build one in Durango,
Yep.
and then infrastructure in.
Probably not the
Let's
Northeast states because those will break off under the Warlord. And
yeah, Verasca and Jalisco, or sorry, not Verasco, Veracruz. I can't read
Veracruz, yeah, which has
those
oil,
two.
which hold on, I'll check what happens if you do Royal Dutch Shell. I think you get the Veracruz oil back. No, you don't. That only came back via the
What's
communist
Royal
civil
Dutch
war.
Shell?
Royal Dutch Shell, or so below oil field expansion, you can nationalize the oil fields,
Oh
which
yeah.
gives you all four states. You get your resource rights back, but the ones that I have resource rights, you'll get those back if you have the Warlord Uprising. So you only Veracruz and Oaxaca are the only two that the British maintain their oil rights, unless you have a communist civil war, and then you can potentially regain resource rights on some of those states as well. Um,
Hmm.
but if you go Royal Dutch Shell, I was just checking to see because you do get Coahuila back, but if you already got Coahuila back, I don't I the resource rights I
It also adds oil to Coahuila.
yeah, it also adds oil, base oil, which gets multiplied by
Yeah.
infrastructure. So it's a 50% increase in oil production there, which will eventually be really good. That's eventually, that's like 10 oil and when the infrastructure is fully developed. Uh,
So what exactly are resource rights? Like, is
uh,
the oil in Veracruz gonna get stolen by the British and American?
yes. So if you open your resource map, you'll see the flags. Anywhere that's got a flag, that means the oil, like all the oil in Mexico, currently goes to
Oh shoot!
foreign
Really?
companies. Yeah, you don't own
Oh
you have oil in Mexico, but all of it's being stolen
yeah,
by foreign
owned by
companies.
multinational companies.
Yes.
That's fun.
Yeah, I benefit from the oil. With my
Yeah,
huge navy, I'm super hungry on oil.
yeah.
So that benefits me. And those you'll get those resource rights back when
So
the
by building infrastructure there, I'm just helping the British.
yeah, if you build it in the other two, you're just helping the British, which unless we don't know if the British are gonna be
Might
friendly or
not
not.
be good. Yeah.
I probably don't want to. Last time I started building big capital ships in the beginning of the game, and I was in violation of the London Naval Treaty, so I either need to stick to building screen ships or I need
London
to.
doesn't let you make ships.
The London Naval Treaty maintains a ratio of capital ships that strength between
Um,
historically the U.S.,
oh,
England, France, and Japan. Germany had already been exempted from it by 1936, although it was originally also a signatory, and Italy, I think, is also
yeah.
an original signatory. Yes, Italy. So Italy, France, UK, Germany originally, but not anymore. The UK, Japan, United States. And so it maintains certain ratios of strength, and the really big
Mhm.
one, and the only one that's very relevant for this game, is that you can't exceed the British naval strength by a certain amount.
I see.
And I start off like neck and neck with the British. So if I build
Yeah.
any capital ships, pretty much I'll exceed their strength, and then they can give me these really nasty decisions that cost events that cost me like 10% base stability. It's really bad.
Can you just give them the ship?
I wish my choices, if I get one of those events, are basically to just scrap some of my older
Uh,
capital ships, probably because the older
yeah.
ones are less worthwhile, or to or if I'm barely exceeded, I might just stop building more and hope that they build enough ships in that time to come back in compliance, or I just ignore them and I lose 10% stability. Uh, The last time I did US, I ignored them. I lost the stability. It was dumb. That's really punishing for a country as powerful and big as the United States with all the factors they have. So I should have either
Yeah.
scrapped some older battleships or withdrew from the London Naval Treaty before they could give me any of these warnings.
What's the cost for withdrawing from the treaty?
150 political power, and there's a chance the British will get a war goal on me. I can,
Okay.
if they remain democratic, they're unlikely to actually take it. But like if they go fascist,
Yeah.
they could go to war with me.
Okay.
Um, if I switch to fascist or communist ideology, it's only 25 political power, and I think they're more likely to attack you in that case.
All right.
So I could do democratic socialism early, but the guy who's this is one of the annoying things that sometimes exists in this game. The guy who's my communist advisor is also the leader of the Communist Party if I flip, so he no longer can act as advisor.
Oh. Yeah, because he's president.
Yes, so I can't boost communism support anymore once I take democratic socialism because Earl Bowder becomes the leader of the country then. That's something
Weird.
wasn't originally in the game. It used to be that you could have the same guy as advisors present. Then they reworked the
Yeah.
advisor system and they didn't give the USA a new communist advisor who could replace Earl Bowder
Right.
or give him a different president or anything.
Yeah.
It's an oversight paradox that they'll probably
Yeah.
never fix.
He's the one man in the country who can do that job.
Yes, which is ridiculous. In the
I love
entire
that.
United States, there's only one guy who can boost communism support, and it's Earl
Yeah.
Bowder.
Hmm.
I mean, like, Germany's newest tree is much better. They have like three different communism boosting advisors or something,
Yeah.
or two. No, Thalman, Rule, and Ulbricht. So they have three advisors, and only the only one who can potentially lead the country is Thalman if you go Spartacus League, or Ulbricht if you go Stalinist. So you have at least two, although you can only access Rule if you go Spartacus League. But you can still have Thalman as advisor if you. So you always have at least one other communist advisor available.
Yeah.
And there's a third country leader if you go Spartacus League who's none of the above. So you could potentially still have three communist boosting advisors and a communist leader who's none of those three if you wanted. Like,
Okay.
which is ridiculous. I'm saying, like, the United States had at least as many potential leaders in their Communist Party as the Germans did
Yeah.
after Hitler had risen to power and started throwing communists in jail already. Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah. One reason for me to delay my flip, because then the only way I can boost communism support is by doing anti-democratic raids or media censorship or whatever the
Hmm.
press, and that those are both very expensive for only a small
Well, that's
swing.
power.
So yeah, and I need to if I need to be careful if I'm at more than 30% communist support. Oh yeah, market access for sure. I should also set the rule to automatically accept purchase requests. Yeah. Um. So if I'm at more than 30% communist support, and I post as folks on YouTube this as like a strategy session, almost this first one, I'll cut it and do a new episode for gameplay for those who are bored to tears by now. Um, if I'm more than 30% communist support when I take Union Representation Act, then I can't avoid civil war. Even if I choose, I get a event, and even if I choose to try and placate the Silver Legion and not pick a fight, they'll still start a civil war. I'll still start getting events. I tested this though, and if I'm below, like I did a save where I just started as the USA and used Focus Autocomplete to instantly do Union Representation Act just to see. And if I'm below 30% communist support, I can placate them and I won't get any of the events that lead up to a civil war. I'm not sure if I have to
Okay.
fire my communist advisor the moment I get the event or something, but um, it's definitely it's a hidden thing. I only know this because people were talking about. Of course, the fascist path is much more popular as the USA, and people figured out that there's a mirror version of it with the fascists where you can avoid a civil war or delay it if you're not yet 30% fascist support. And the communist flip is programmed exactly the same way, just no one ever posted about it on the forums because, as I said, people prefer playing fascist to communist as the USA.
Yeah.
So, which is stupid because you can still conquer the world as communist. It's only Democratic non-aligned paths that have their hands tied. Um, let's see. But yeah, I probably want to think for a second. Uh, let's see. Electronic mechanical engineering. Um, because of the Great Depression, I only make 0.21 political power per day, which is
Oh.
ridiculous. Actually, I don't want to jump straight into continue a New Deal. That's a mistake. I can save up to 10 days of political power, and I can take small lobbying effort or medium. And I don't start off with much. There's this whole House Senate system as the United States. um, probably don't want to bother granting statehood. That all gets me power in the Senate, which is usually easier to placate anyhow. Oh yeah, and as the United States, every 2 years when midterms come around or the big 4 year elections, all the House support tends to reset itself. So not only do I have to constantly win over the House with these lobbying decisions, which cost a bunch of political power, but then I lose all the progress when 1938 midterms roll around.
Hmm.
So I have to build the support and use it. What I'm going to do, actually, I'm going to go right for medium lobbying effort um, and just not have any political power gain for a little bit. And yeah, actually, yeah. That runs for 45 days. Uh, yeah, and then I need to continue the New Deal. The thing is, the United States needs to rush the Agricultural Adjustment Act fairly early to start working on reducing the Great Depression, which means few decisions that give me political power. So I've become a lot more shameless after that last game of just, I'm going to take advantage of the fact that I'm doing something that would technically have me gain minus 6-1 political power a day, but you can't go into negative via daily gain or loss. So I just sit at 0 and don't gain any political power, which, okay.
Yeah.
Um, of course, if I could go into negative if I'd say saved up 10 days of political power before taking my focus and had been sitting actually 0, because then you can go down to negative 10 by putting into a focus.
Uh,
So yeah, it's very finicky, but yeah, WPA Agricultural Adjustment Act. I have to do that in order to reduce the Great Depression and start a tracking timer to do Fair Labor Standards Act. But it also lets me suspend the persecution and grab the WARE group, which gets me 3 advisors that don't cost any political power to hire, which is really nice because that means I can just fill my cabinet instantly and I can fire them later and replace them with other better people when I have the political power for someone I actually want.
okay.
Like, may even want to save a slot for my communist advisor. But like, I'd probably grab Harry White and Whitaker Chambers, which give me political power, stability, and consumer goods factory factor. Uh, that one gives political power and stability, and the other gives consumer goods. Minus 15. There's also a minus 5 production efficiency cap, but that's just to boost my military industry, which is useless this early on. Um, but yeah, so Durango, you're building a civ there, right?
Yep. What I've got queued up is one Civ factory in Durango, three infrastructure in Jalisco, three factories in Jalisco, three infrastructure in Veracruz, and three factories in Veracruz.
The Veracruz oil just goes to the British.
Yeah, but I don't have a better place to put more factories.
How many fat build slots are there in Guerrero?
One. Well, one of two.
Oh, okay, I see. Yeah, so yeah,
Yeah.
tungsten. I was gonna say that
That,
you
I mean,
do end
right.
up eventually needing the steel from Guerrero, but it's only one, so you should wait till you have more build slots from tech, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, so tungsten. If you get let's see, it's a base deposit of 8. So yeah, you could get enough tungsten that I think you started export focus. So yeah, you could get a solid 8, which would be enough that some AI might buy tungsten from you if you
Yeah.
fully develop Jalisco. So that's not bad. Yeah. And Mexico City also has steel, and you also get steel via decision in Chihuahua eventually.
Should I build infrastructure in Mexico City or later? Save that for later.
Later when it's got actual build slots.
All right.
So let's see. You probably want to Guerrero, and then you can put the Civ right after the infrastructure, so it'll start in those immediately. Or not Guerrero, so Jalisco,
Yeah.
and you can just like shift click up so that it fills it with Civ after that, right?
I've got it queued so that as soon as it's yeah, I've got it all queued. As soon as
Yeah,
it's done with the infrastructure, it'll move on to Civ.
yeah. And then are there any other states that are 104? You were doing Veracruz because
Veracruz. Well, there's also the two that are gonna revolt.
yeah, which are yeah
Those
not
are
great.
1 of 4 and 2 of 5, but it's not really worth
Yeah,
building there right now.
yeah. Because that'll give
That'll just
factories to the
strengthen them.
yeah.
The rest are all like 1 of 2 or 0 out of 2.
Plus they'll get the generic tree, which can build infrastructure in those states,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
they'll upgrade it for you. Yeah. Yeah. I guess Veracruz makes sense. And that jungle along
And
the coast.
eventually, I'll take the oil back, right?
From the UK.
Yeah. Not if
The
I go Royal Dutch Shell, but hmm,
the only ways to get that oil back are
is a nationalized.
either nationalize the oil fields, which can give the UK a war goal against you, so it's really risky,
Yeah,
or it also give me, but I'll just tell them, I'll say no. I don't want a war goal, or I'll take the
yeah,
war goal and not use it if there's like a stability otherwise.
yeah,
So you don't have to worry me about me attacking you, but you will have
yeah.
to worry about the British AI,
Mhm.
especially if they're going fascist or something. Uh, or to have a civil war where the other side starts in control of that state. That will reset the resource
Mhm.
rates as well. Um, so no, you'll probably never get the oil back in Veracruz. It's just, but you can still
Do
build
you think
civ
I
there.
should take Royal Dutch Shell instead?
Yeah, yeah, I'd grab it because you can't risk the British attacking you, and you want to do one of those two focuses.
You don't think we'll eventually be strong enough?
Um, I mean, maybe, but you get this whole march south thing. If you do Royal Dutch Shell, you can also
Right.
join the Allies, even if you're communist. I kid you not.
Hmm.
The British don't care as long as you don't touch their multinational corporations. They don't care if you go communist. Not that
So
much.
yeah, Community of Nations will let me into the Allies.
Yep.
Oh, I can buy Belize,
Yes.
which
You
would
can.
be nice. Although if I
Yes.
I could also just take Belize if
Uh.
I fight the English.
Yes, but then you have to deal with the British coming in with their navy and
Mhm.
naval invasions all on your coast, and it's a
Yeah.
mess.
Yeah, I don't know how well I can fight them.
And then you won't the if you're gonna march south into Central American countries, if you're at war with like UK, they'll just invite all those countries into the allies,
Oh,
and then
yeah.
there'll be governments in exile, and you won't actually be able to like win the war, and then you can't puppet them
Mhm.
or annex them, which you can do as Mexico. You can actually annex and core like all of Central America,
Oh yeah.
or you
Integrate the
can
South.
yeah, or you can puppet them because if you do it early, they won't have finished their industry focuses. So you can puppet them, annex them later via the autonomy system where you like give them convoys and it reduces their autonomy. It's way more expensive, but that way they'll have all their
Yeah.
build slots. And if you're communist and they're puppets,
I
they might run ideological loyalty, army spirit, or they might get indoctrination depending on how early you attack them.
I can take the canal from you.
Yeah, you can demand it. I'll probably just tell you to bug off because it's more useful in my hands. Once I flip
Yeah.
communist, I can eventually do a collaboration government on Panama that way. Um,
I assume I'm probably not gonna be retaking the Southern United States. No.
yeah,
I've
probably
got I've
not.
got some focuses to. take those back.
Yeah, yeah, no. Unless for some reason you really hate me and want to fight me and want to probably get your
Not
ass whooped if
particularly.
I'm all militarized at that point.
I
It,
that would make for some probably pretty ugly borders anyway.
it's kind of you like
Just because of how
re-annex.
great all the borders are.
It's like Texas and Arizona and New Mexico and California. You take those from
Yeah.
me, and I
Yeah,
think
I
you
don't think that would
recore
be a
them.
very nice looking border.
Mexico is going to be a giant beast when you're like push into South America eventually, like Colombia,
Yeah.
Venezuela. Uh, yeah, when you go your Bolivarian alliance focus, Venezuela is I think normally the only one of these like generic tree countries that will like join your faction, even though they're fascist and you're communist, they'll still join your faction.
Yeah.
Or actually no, the guy who did it, he was non-aligned. So if you're non-aligned and they'll fascist, they'll join your faction. I don't think they'll leave even if you flip communist, though don't quote me on that. Maybe they will. But you
Hmm.
can use them before you flip, potentially if you don't boost communist support too early to like attack Colombia, get the Venezuelans help in doing that, and then later kick them from faction or they leave when you go communist, and then you attack Venezuela. Colombia is really difficult to take from the north because the La Libertad, it's like all jungle and there's no supply there. None.
Yeah.
It's a horrible supply situation. That's what's known as like the Darien Gap, like
Hmm.
that in the mountains south of that. It is brutal to try and push through this area by land. Uh,
Oh yeah.
it's just
Probably
there's
want to naval invade.
even if you navally invade, there's just no supply. Like Colombia is absolutely terrible to take unless you're like the United States and you have like
Oh
200
yeah.
air supply transports. Like I could
Just
do it because I
nothing
come
but
in with air supply. What?
it's just nothing but jungle and mountains.
Yes, it is the worst, and the supply hubs are kind of far apart, and the infrastructure is low level, so the supply hubs don't provide supply very far from where they're located. Like
Hmm.
you could probably get decent supply in Cartagena and that port east of it because there's naval
Yeah.
bases there, but that's it. The rest of the country is just like trying to get to Bogota is gonna be brutal. So if you have the
Yeah.
Venezuelans help, it'll really be useful because it's a slow, difficult war, and you can force the Colombians to fight on two fronts. The other thing is you have to push through a single state province, and so the Colombians will just stack their entire
Oh
army
yeah.
on the border with, if you've
Yeah.
taken Panama at this point.
Hmm.
Um, it's bad. So, and I've seen AI sit and like try and put divisions into Medellin, which you can't even see until you zoom way in. It's a little one victory point province northwest of Bogota in the mountains. If you zoom way in, you'll
Oh
see
yeah.
it. And I've seen the AI spend months just trying to take that one victory point. Just
Hmm.
constant because Mexico can't afford tanks. So you're trying to take entrenched infantry in mountains across the river with no supply with infantry. It's you could not
Oof.
ask for a worse. And usually it's very hot or extremely hot on top of that. And often
Probably
there's
easier to take that
storms.
hills province first.
Hail province?
Cross the river. Probably easier to
Oh
the
yeah.
hills province north of Medellin. Go there first and then go to Medellin.
Yeah, so that you don't have to cross the major river.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's how you would do it, but it's a brutal
Still a
fight. Even
pain.
taking the hills, that area is very hot. It's rainy or storms most of the
Yeah.
time. It's
And you
got
still have
bad
to cross the river into the hills.
yes, it's out of the
Doesn't look
jungle
like fun terrain.
and point. It's a brutal. It's historically
Yeah.
one of the hardest. There have been wars fought in that area. It's one of the hardest places on earth to push through because of the dense jungles. So the best thing you can do is try and get Venezuela, Bolivarian alliance, attack Colombia together before you flip communist, which means you don't want to boost communism support too early, or you could end up with like a civil war you didn't want. Uh, However, you'll need the red shirts to get international struggle and revolutionary class war and support Spain's loyalists fairly early. Uh, we don't need international struggle lets you send volunteers. That's right. So if you're gonna grab that, so you can send. If
Oh,
you,
um,
yeah,
Bolivarian alliance is possible with communism as the ruling party. Communism or non-aligned.
yeah, you start off non-aligned, so you can take that as soon as you get the requisite
Is it
focuses.
just that if I go communist, Venezuela specifically won't join the faction?
Well, they're fascist right now, so
I see.
fascist nations will
That's just the
ally
name.
non-aligned nations usually,
Okay.
no matter what their actual party popularities are,
Right.
but
Right.
they
So if
usually won't align with communist ones.
so, I'd have to flip them communist if I went communist first.
If you win, yes. So the safer thing is to ally with them,
Yeah.
help use their help to take Colombia out,
Okay.
and then kick them out of the faction and attack them once you go communist, or they'll leave the faction voluntarily more likely, and then
Okay.
they'll be branded as a faction traitor, and then you can attack them. Like,
Should I train up some divisions?
uh, yeah. So as for divisions, as Mexico, how many divisions do you have at the beginning?
21.
That's right. Which is I
Two of
forget.
them are cavalry. The rest are my standard infantry.
Yeah, international struggle reduces divisions required per cent volunteers by 60%. So normally you'd require, I think, 31 divisions, and this reduces it down to takes off 3/5 of that. So it reduces it down to 12. So you'll be able to send
Okay.
volunteers, but if you get up to 41 divisions, you can send an additional volunteer division.
So do you
Uh,
think I should just spam out the weak divisions?
well, so here's the thing. You really gotta, if you're doing Mexico, you really gotta manipulate the hell out of the division system. I mean, you've just gotta brutally take advantage of it. So what I
Yeah.
suggest doing is you're gonna probably want to create. You've got that little division template that's I think just 3 infantry.
Yep.
You're probably going to want to create a duplicate. You're going to probably want to create two versions of it, and I would just rename it like infantry brigade or something in English if you want it to be easier to understand what it is. But it's up to you what you call it. You could
That's
keep
fine.
but you probably want to create two versions of that, one for training and one for exercises. The training one will need to have equipment enabled so that it can actually get stuff while it's in the queue and get up to 20%. And the one that's on exercises, you just disable everything and just like for exercises or just sing in the countryside. The point is a different template that won't receive new rifles, right?
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I had the other guy doing exercises because you're Army XP and trying to get it, but you could choose not to as well. But either way, you're gonna want to do is probably convert everything to that all your existing divisions to that really small template, and then produce more of I would just so that you
Don't
can
I
change the equipment.
lose a lot of men doing that though?
No, the manpower will go back into your manpower pool, any surplus manpower. And
Okay. And if equipment too?
yes, any surplus. So if a division it gets the warning messages aren't always very clear, but if it has more manpower or equipment than it needs for the new template, everything spare goes back into your stockpiles
Okay.
in manpower pool.
So
Uh,
convert everything.
what?
So convert everything, the horses as well
Yes,
to.
because horses require more equipment per battalion, and
All right.
this will let you. This pure Brigada Agarista, or whatever. I think it doesn't even have any support companies, right? It's just pure infantry,
Yeah.
and it's really small. So pure infantry means that it's the most cost effective if you want to do exercises for army experience. Like you can just give them nothing but basic rifles and run continuous exercises, and they'll like they reworked the army exercise system. It used to be that you could only get up to a certain amount and you'd only want one division. Now, like the amount of XP you get scales with how many battalions are doing exercises. They're fully equipped. So if you have 1,000 infantry divisions that are pure infantry and all equipped with just rifles, you can get like you can make bank on army experience, right? Like
Okay.
the more divisions, the more men you have. But if a division is under equipped, so support battalions count as one battalion for this purpose, but they're usually much more expensive to equip. And if you don't equip them,
Hmm.
then they have a really high impact on the equipment percentage, which reduces the experience gain from that division.
Okay.
So pure infantry divisions are the most effective thing for running exercises, is what I'm saying.
All right. But so
Uh,
I don't want to. I don't want to equip the ones I have in the field though. Just the ones I have training.
um, yeah, I would do no replacement equipment on. Personally, it's up to you whether you want to do exercises. The guys already trained, but I would disable new equipment if in case some of them aren't at full equipment or they suffer attrition from like low supply or something. If you mess it up, I would not stick any. So I would not give any new rifles divisions already in the field and focus on everything on training, trying to get up to 41 divisions so that you can send more to the Spanish Civil War, an extra division.
Okay.
And so you want 40 of those Agrista divisions, right? And you'll want one division that's just like a normal infantry division. Uh, like that you could did you already convert all the divisions?
Yeah.
That's fine. You can yeah,
Should I
you can
train a single new one?
you could wait a little bit on that or you could do it now um and when it's and pre-deploy it like as soon as it's got 20%, as soon as it's reached as much equipment as it has, like, but I would what I would personally do is just start a ton of like Agarista divisions in training so that because
Yeah.
they're really cheap and you only need to give them 20% equipment.
Okay.
Uh, shoot, how much equipment do you have in stockpiles? Because you just downsized all those divisions.
Um, I can train 7 divisions before I run out.
Oh, so it will actually like, yeah, I guess you could have exploited even worse if you put the divisions in training and then downsize, because then the equipment could you could have like 14 in training and they'd each get half equipment and they would all be able to train up to 50% without receiving new equipment, and then you could deploy them green. Or by that point, you might already have produced the equipment they needed, you know? Um,
No, I'm a little confused.
Sorry, because I'm talking like all sorts of ways to game the training system, and some of it's legit and some of it's not. Like, you don't need intentionally, you can start a division training that you don't have all the equipment for, and as long as you produce the equipment faster than they train, you can still get them all the way up to train before you deploy them. But you can
Okay.
also
So are you? Yeah, you can pre-deploy at 20%.
yeah, but the divisions you currently got will whew, okay, hmm. I think I know how to make this work anyways, even though there was an order of operations to do this easily, right? So I would go did you copy the Brigado Agarista one? Like, so there's a
Yeah, I
training and,
duplicated it already.
all right, so I would take the training one, right?
Yeah.
And let's see, seven, I would queue up like 24 of those.
Oh, geez. All at once?
Yes, all at once, so they're in parallel.
Okay.
And then once you got all 24, then I would cancel the ones that already like, because what it will do, it's stupidly, there's no
Oh,
way to tell
my.
it I want to give partial equipment to all. It'll give like the first seven
Oh,
full and the rest will have none, if you see.
cancel the first 7. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it will evenly distribute that equipment over the ones that currently have none.
The
Once,
remaining 17, or do I want to queue it back up to 24?
I would, let's see, you have 21 in the field. Yeah, I would just queue it back up to like 24 because if you may even be able to get up to 61 divisions before the Spanish Civil War really gets going, before you can even send volunteers.
They still seem to have given it to the first 7.
Wait, when you canceled it, it redistributed to other ones,
Yeah.
only the
So I
next
got,
seven?
I canceled it, and then I add one, and suddenly the first 7
Oh, you
ish.
can't add, sorry. Oh shoot, you can't add one because what you need to do is you need it to automatically distribute. If you add a new one, it still does it to the first seven. But if you let it do it automatically when a day rolls over, it'll
So
give it
add like
even.
30 or so.
Yeah, I would add like 30, cancel the first like What's the you need, it's the first seven. So I would go if you're trying to do 24, I would do the 31, cancel the first seven, and when the day rolls over, it should give them all like 30% equipment.
I got 23 queued up with no equipment.
Yeah. So add one more and then just cancel the first seven, and then you'll have 24 that are like will have like 30% equipment or something, and they should be able to. If you can get, as long as they get at least 20% equipment, you can deploy them green, and then you can get them all the way up to regular with enough time by deploying them in the
I
field. And at that point, you can
think
either keep them on the one that gets new equipment, or you can switch them to the exercise template, so they
all
will
right.
just work with what they've got. Because the point is just to get lots of divisions so that you can send lots of volunteers to the Spanish Civil War.
Okay.
Um, and what was the thing? Oh yeah, the when the world rises, most of the divisions stay loyal, but you'll just need lots of divisions to cover the whole front of along the like areas that break off, so that he can't push, so you can contain him, and then you can try and like have some better divisions that do the actual attacking, because you probably the way to really milk it is to like at least even if you don't take control of one of the states, like push in and take provinces and like secure really strong defensive lines and encirclements to like cause them to wither on the line. There's different ways to, you don't necessarily need to leave him with all his starting
All right.
land. You just need him to not surrender and have control of at least one
Yeah.
state to add build slots to eventually. So, which you don't even need to do right away because, let's see. Oh, yeah. One thing I tried to get the other guy to do and he had trouble, even when is if you his capital is San Luis Potosi because he's a strong man of San Luis. So
Yeah.
once that civil war breaks out, you can just surround San Luis and circle it, and then he can't get, but not take it, and then he can't resupply any of his divisions, and they'll slowly wither on the vine, which will make him
Hmm.
really weak and not that much of a danger to you eventually anymore. Because they'll all be at 0% supply, and they'll all lose attrition and like manpower to attrition at that point.
Okay.
So yeah, and then you can just let him build factories in San Luis or wherever. As long as you don't take either of the states, he'll still build the infrastructure and the factories up, but he's not a threat, you know. And you can slowly, and when his divisions are nice and weak, you can finish him off at that point. It takes like half a year for his divisions to run out of equipment due to attrition, so it actually is a
Mm.
strategy anyhow, just to take very few losses in a civil war this way.
Okay.
Especially if he's not confident enough that he won't actually attack you. But yeah, so you've got like 24 divisions and none of them have equipment, and when the day rolls over, it should give them all like 30% now, right?
I don't know. Well, one has 5 infantry equipment. Is that a problem?
No, it's not a
Okay.
problem. That might have
All right.
marginally more. I need to figure out where I'm going to build my build slots. Because I hadn't been looking at this. Where I'm going to build, sorry, my factories. Uh, Mississippi is really underdeveloped. They do join the other side of my Civil War, but I'm probably going to try and avoid that Civil War for a long time so I can just consolidate my position and help certain wars and deal with the bloody Great Depression without having to, I don't know. It's just wait for more favorable times to flip. I don't know. Maybe Civil War is annoying in some ways, although it's actually not bad strategy. Like I can get invited into the Allies when I have the Second American Civil War, right?
Hmm.
So like if the Allies still
Does that happen
exist,
when you do full desegregation?
there's two ways I can spark it: full desegregation or Union Representation Act. Uh, if I take either of those focuses and my communist support is less than 30%, I can choose to try and like reduce tensions, and that's enough to avoid a civil war. But if I take the other one, the other focus, then like and aggravate them a second time, then civil war is inevitable. If communist support is over 30% or I don't calm tensions, then I'll get a civil war no matter what. So I can only calm tensions once, and only if communist support is under um, is under 30%, and I will lose 10% base stability for doing it. The alternative would be to lose 120 political power. But it's worth it because if this, when the Civil War kicks off, I lose 20% stability due to like this violent, like it's like a January 6th kind of thing, but it happened in like 1940, right? The fascists
Yeah.
like stormed the Capitol building, or actually they stormed the Congress building, but um,
Mm-hmm.
so that yeah, they stormed the Capitol building just like January 6th, and it's like I'm wondering if they rewrote the if they wrote the text for this event after that happened, or if it was just like almost prescient. But it's like a January 6th thing,
Yeah.
and at that point, you lose 20% stability, and a civil war is inevitable, no matter what you do
Okay.
at that point. So, um, the
Is
way
so
to
yeah, is the CSA fascist
they start
or
off
like communist?
democratic with
Oh, okay.
a leader who's a national integralist, which is a trait that's a little more common, I think, with fascists, but it can be.
Mm.
I've seen non-aligned and even democratic nations get it before.
Yeah.
But they have decisions that boost communist support and stability, if I remember. And then if they win the
Really?
civil war, they get a like right now. I could choose. I'm choosing continuing the New Deal, but I could also choose reestablish the gold standard after my 1936 elections. I would have to wait, and FDR would have to lose the 36 elections, which I get an
Yeah.
event. I just pick who wins.
Oh.
And if I win America first, ally with the silver shirts, I could flip fascist. I'm not going to do that, but the if I lose the Civil War and the CSA wins it, they should lose their generic focus tree and instead get that tree, and they're locked into the fascist path at that point. I think I saw that in
Okay.
one game where the U.S. tried to flip. I think it was they tried to flip communist, and the northern side lost the Civil War because
Mm.
somebody sent a bunch of volunteers to help the CSA, and the CSA won, and then they were
Yeah.
locked into the fascist tree. I think that was my very first time playing Hearts Iron 4 that
Hmm.
happened or something. And I was an Iron Man, and I was playing as non-aligned Germany. And I think because that happened, if I remember correctly, the fascist United States eventually attacked me over some island in the Caribbean that I got off the British when I beat them in the British ended up fighting me as the Kaiserreich. So that can happen. If I was it's pretty easy civil war to win, especially if I have all my divisions in like Europe as volunteers, because volunteer divisions aren't eligible to join the Confederacy, only ones that are in the states proper. Which actually makes a little sense if you look at the events, because they're like governor nationalizes. I mean, governor mobilizes the National Guard, which is really unclear because the U.S. has a federal and a state National Guard, and they're like
Oh.
divisions I can train. And I think they're supposed to represent federal National Guard, but the state National Guards are under control of governors, and so the idea is that the governors like take control of the state National Guard in the South, and they use it to fight a new civil war.
Yeah.
Um, and I don't know. There's like militias and different things is the point that can occur, and I don't know. Maybe it's got something to do with like the state National Guard. I don't know why, but none of my volunteer divisions when I was doing that other game and I had the Civil War, all my divisions were in Europe as volunteers to fight against the Nazis. Like I had like 40 divisions. They were all in Europe, and not a single one defected to the Confederacy. And the Confederacy only had like their free divisions that they got when the Civil War broke out, which meant for like 2 weeks I had no divisions in the States, and they were free to just march north. But after that, suddenly I had like 40 divisions, and then I also had volunteers from the Soviet Union, Japan, and Italy, all of whom had went communist. So it was like they were outnumbered 2.5 to 1. That would have been a really easy civil war. I could have
Okay.
it. It could be that like the UK goes fascist and they help the Confederacy if I have it, and I could have a really hard civil war. So, but if it left up to their own devices, there are ways I can make sure that most of the army remains loyal, like sending most of them to Europe as volunteers. Uh, which is to say that it's not necessarily a hard civil war, and as long as I win it, I don't have to worry, but they do get unique decisions to honor the Confederacy. And those, if they take all of them before the Civil War goes over, then I think they're locked into going fascist. And if they don't take all of them, I think they remain non aligned. So it depends how long the Civil War lasts. But if they win the Civil War, the AI usually takes a while because they're at a huge disadvantage. They usually lose.
Okay.
Um, yeah. But anyways, I'm gonna continue New Deal, WPA, Agricultural Adjustment Act. Then I should consider War Department and Two Ocean Navy at that point. I just need to make sure not to build capital ships, or the British will decide they're coming for me.
Yeah.
Like they really hate the idea of my having a decent navy that's got more capital ships than them. It's something about a naval arms race. I'm being a little bit cynical. Shoot, I've got a lot of. We might not actually be able to really get much going here because I've got a lot of like my navy starts off completely disorganized in like three, four, five, seven fleets, and I obviously need to consolidate down and get
Oh
them
yeah.
doing exercises and stuff. And my army, like none of them are in. I start with 36 divisions. None of them are in like they're scattered all around the world. So I was gonna pull them back and just have them sit in the U.S. probably. I could leave them anywhere, but it's hard to keep track of them all that way. So I had a lot of stuff to do reorganizing. But I wanted you to start to get familiar with this, and then we can do a longer play session later. I know you don't have much time, so
Uh, I do still have some time.
yeah, we can do a little more.
30.
Yeah, I personally have like I don't even have heavy machine gun tech at the start, so I have a terrible fighter design in production. It's got two light machine guns and two heavy. I don't even have the air experience to reform it yet. Um, and let's see, facility with unassigned scientist. Hmm. Last time I took the surface ship specialist, and actually the U.S. gets a lot of potential projects that are sub-based, midget subs, cruiser subs, air independent, and tiles, torpedo, cruiser, and battleship. Or this is something that Paradox needs to fix. But taking a scientist who specializes in surface ships will actually be worse for the surface ship projects, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Because you
Ow.
want the projects to take a long time because you get these iteration events, and some of the iteration
Oh.
events have are randomly like they're not guaranteed to happen, and every time you get an iteration, there's a chance they'll fire. Some of them give permanent bonuses to the final product of the special projects. So, like, if I want a torpedo cruiser, which is really good, especially if I'm not building capital ships, because like it comes in a light cruiser and a heavy cruiser variant. Like any cruiser hull in the game, I can equip it with light or heavy guns, and so if I'm going to stay in compliance with the London Naval Treaty, I probably want to do torpedo cruisers. But if I don't get the iteration event for its offensive focus, it's not very good. It really needs the offensive focus, which can give it 10% extra torpedo attack. And I really want to get the defensive thing as well. I can choose an offensive and a defensive focus. The last time I only got the event for the offensive focus, not the defensive one. And you can get both, and that will give you a much better ship hull that there's no way to get those bonuses otherwise. So if I'm doing surface ships, I probably want a sub specialist, and if I'm doing subs, I probably want a surface ship specialist. Isn't that like counterintuitive?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start off by assigning the sub specialist, let him gain experience, and I'll because my first project will probably be torpedo cruisers, because that if I can start producing those, I can have a really strong navy without violating the London Naval Treaty. Um, let's see. And I want to do at least something that's navy. Sorry, I'm like, I know that coughs. irritating. Of course. Improve ship torpedo launchers. Uh, yeah, I have like three main naval MIOs. Well, I have four. One's just subspecialists, but Norfolk, which does escort fleets, Brooklyn, which does battleships and heavy cruisers, and Newport News, which does carriers and cruisers, but its cruiser buffs aren't as good as the ones for Norfolk Naval Yard, which can get production output, reliability. Um, so yeah, I'm like focusing on just building up Norfolk, and then they can mass produce torpedo cruisers. But you can eventually do this as Mexico too. This is not U.S. exclusive. It's just very hungry in terms of industry to build like a naval engineering facility. But if you look at your construction queue, you should see something by that name right now.
Naval engineering facility, yeah.
Yeah, it's experimental facilities. It's pretty expensive, and I wouldn't do it till you have a lot more industry than you do now because
Yeah.
it'll cripple your industrial snowball if you do it right now. But you'll eventually be able to do this later. And actually, when if you annex all Central America and they've all gotten their extra like three naval dockyards and build slots, you can actually end up having more naval dockyards than I do because I start with 22 and I can get 10 more via focus. Uh, Between the ones you get via focus and Central America, you can end up with like 40 or 36 naval dockyards, more than I have or will ever get
Hmm.
unless I build them manually. So you can actually end up with a really powerful navy just by like annexing the Caribbean, Central America, South America. So someday you may actually be doing torpedo cruisers, and they're really good. They have more HP than 1936 or 40 cruiser hulls, if I remember. I think they're on the level with 44. And you can equip them with like just huge arrays of just torpedoes, which torpedoes are usually um, cheaper than like main gun emplacements. Like if you're doing a light cruiser, they're cheaper. They're obviously less effective against screen ships, but they're very cost effective against capital ships. And if you can still hit screen ships with torpedoes. It's harder, but if you spam a million torpedoes in the water, you can even hit a destroyer with them. They're not immune, you know.
Yeah.
And you, of course, you don't rely on the torpedoes to kill screens. You just build a bunch of torpedo cruisers to murder capital ships because they will absolutely murder any capital ship in the game, even heavy cruisers, which are the most fastest and thus the hardest to hit. But they'll murder battleships and battle cruisers and super heavies, and even heavy cruisers are pretty vulnerable. And and then you do light cruisers to murder screens, and you don't need any capital ships in your fleet. And you can also there's a heavy cruiser variant of the torpedo cruiser, so it can have a few heavy guns, and those will benefit from the screening bonuses. If you have a ton of light cruiser torpedo cruisers and light cruisers that are not torpedo cruisers, so they can have more main gun emplacements, and you can have a few heavy cruiser torpedo cruisers, or just a few heavy cruisers that have lots of secondaries. Either way, to deal with screen ships, and if you look in the like Wiki explains, capital ships that have full screening bonuses, like fire at double the rate of screen ships or something. I forget, or 30% faster. They get like a big bonus. Uh, which is why like capital ships are actually not terrible, but they're extremely most capital ships are extremely vulnerable to torpedoes. Unless you have like a heavy cruiser, it's only got like one gun emplacement and is really a high top speed or something, you know. It's possible because the ratio of surface visibility to speed is what determines how easy a ship is to hit with heavy guns, light guns, and torpedoes. So yeah,
Okay.
um, and torpedoes suffer the most from speed, and heavy cruisers, or sorry, the lead. Yeah, sorry, torpedoes suffer the most, and light guns suffer the least from a fast target, and heavy guns are somewhere in between the two. All
Yep.
right. So yeah, I made it may not be a optimal use of naval production, but it will allow me to delay withdrawing from the naval treaty if I want, if I just produce torpedo cruisers en masse. And then later I can add actual light capital ships. I'll just do the light cruiser variant. If I can get a good roll on if I can get both offensive and defensive focus, it would actually be pretty decent. Uh, hmm. Sorry, I'm just looking at where I should build industry on the coast. Probably. The South is actually one of the best places to industrialize because it's really underdeveloped at game start. Um, it'll make my Civil War harder, but if I'm building Civ, then that I can I can fill their build slots with civilian industry, and they won't be able to build any mill even if they have tons of civilian industry.
Mhm.
Like so
So they
it's
won't
not.
convert any.
Uh, the AI is not super keen on doing that. Sometimes they will, but it's rare.
Oh,
Uh, and it'll take time for them to do that, and I don't expect any Civil War to go on that long. I might leave it going so they add one or two build slots before I finish them off, but um, hmm.
yeah.
Let's see. 4 build slots in North Carolina. Uh, 3 up in Michigan. Yeah, I think I need to start by industrializing North Carolina. The South is underdeveloped for a lot of historical reasons. If you look at the map of
Yeah.
the US, a lot of the factories are like in the north.
Yeah.
Uh like
The
at
Rust
the
Belt.
yeah, New England has 10 factories. New
Yeah.
York has 12, Pennsylvania has 12. North Carolina at the beginning of the game has 3. South Carolina 2. Mississippi 1. Louisiana 2. The South is really underdeveloped because a combined history of like racism and underdevelopment of like public infrastructure and like the legacy of the US Civil War just left them like the New Deal was actually historically when the US started to really invest in industrializing the South. Although there was a little bit of some factory owners did move south because of the cheaper labor before then. But the lack of infrastructure really hurt the industrialization. And it was like in the New Deal, the United States started to really invest in infrastructure in the South. So,
Yeah.
yeah, South Carolina is even better industrialized than North. It's got even more underutilized potential. Uh, right. Still need at least one other. To efficiently industrialize, the U.S. has to like work on 3 states in parallel at a minimum.
Mm.
Uh, if I'm gonna delay the Civil War, probably Louisiana, because they have room for 4 as well. So actually, South Carolina and Louisiana are equal. Louisiana is even better actually because it's got oil. So Calif. Yep. I mean that's where people are suffering the most. Even if you look at the South today, like unemployment rates are much higher. And I took like a class where you looked at like it was about like medical inequality, but that intimately is tied up with economic factors. I mean, looked at like the rates of poverty are so much higher in the South. Even today, there's whole like rural communities in like Alabama, Mississippi that they're like 100 years behind the rest of the country. So,
Yeah.
oh yeah, it's bad. People are suffering there to this day. That's probably part of what helped get like Trump elected, is because these areas have been completely left behind. And that's partly
Yeah.
because I mean, racism and their governors are shit. It's not entirely the fault of their politics, but that's where like racism is used to divide and conquer and get people to elect people who are actually not serving their economic interests. So, Tennessee,
Yeah.
which let's see. The non-aligned states of America goes when the Civil War breaks out. I think I actually retain control of Tennessee and Kentucky. It's only the deep South that breaks off. Probably shouldn't worry. I could go load up the save later to double check. But hmm, sorry. So I'm looking for states that have 3 levels of infrastructure, because the ones that have, oh, here's one that's got 4. Of course, the that's even better. Ohio. Shoot. That's even better place industrialized in North Carolina because it has the same. Sorry, look at the map of the United States and it's overwhelming. There's so much going on it, you know. There's so many
Yeah.
states and um
Yeah, it's huge.
yeah, and so then I'm starting with, I mean, then I'm doing North Carolina and Tennessee. The US doesn't have any like, oh, it does have undisturbed isolation, which slows down, but with free trade and stuff, I just build factories so fast that I'm trying to plan like a few rounds of industry ahead, which is a little hard for me, especially my long COVID. Sometimes hard to think ahead. I'll probably have to revise this later, but I like to lock in at least a plan, you know, and I can revise as I see where I screwed up, which I will screw it up, for sure. Base 6. Um, yeah, so there's a whole, when my Civil War breaks up, there's this whole block that becomes non-aligned states of America. Um, they don't have great, uh, well, it's a lot of my industrial core, and they get their own generic tree. If it's actually better to let them break off, then there's a focus they can take to prevent that. So I start control of them, but they just stay out of the war.
Yeah.
It's fewer areas they have to worry about, like getting bombed or something, and like by if I had any tactical or strategic bombers at that point, and they'll get their own generic trees. And if I'm running free trade, they'll have free trade, and then I get access to 80% of the resources. Whereas under free trade, and if I control it, it only get 20%. So it's actually better because, like, if I'm starting to really industrialize heavily and running out of steel, I can import it from what I'll just regain control of after the Civil War instead of having to like buy steel from the UK or something. Which they can and probably will embargo me when I withdraw from the London Naval Treaty. So there's that. Um, hmm. Ohio only requires 1 level of, yeah, infrastructure. Louisiana's got oil. So Ohio, Louisiana, South Carolina, Minnesota, which has steel, Tennessee, and North Carolina. Tennessee also has steel. Uh, cool. I probably have to revise this because I'm adding 11. Yeah, that, no, that should be good for the first 2 rounds of industrialization. Picked 6 states because I do 3 at a time because I have 3 factory lines at the beginning. I start off with 39 factories available, but I have a really bad spirit, so my consumer goods factory factor is 65%. 2/3 of my factory is going to consumer goods.
Easy.
Brutal, huh? Uh, and I start off with 5 of 10 of my military factories. I'm probably shoot. I think last time I made the mistake of producing too many aircraft, thinking I would like sell them down to like Mexico, and I forgot. Just you're gonna have trouble even. You probably just want a lot of rifles. If you buy aircraft, it'll they're expensive. They're not very cost effective. So I'm producing a single pretty crappy fighter line, the P-35A. I'll put those up on the market later. Maybe I'll actually redo them as the P-35B later when I have a better design. But yeah, oh wait, there's some cheap fighters. They're high maneuverability because they're very lightly armed, and they have engine two, one light machine gun, one heavy. So yeah, maybe I'll 44 agility. They're not terrible, so maybe I'll sell some of those later or sell them for subsidized. You can buy them and rebuild your air force when your war is closer. But probably lots of infantry equipment because um, I can sell you lots of basic infantry equipment, and you can buy it and you can send it to Spain and get lots of army experience. Does that sound cool? I know it's obsolete, but that'll get you the maximum amount of army experience.
Selling what to Spain?
Basic infantry equipment. I could either produce basic or infantry one, but if infantry one, it'll be more expensive for you to buy, and um, it'll help the Republicans win their war quicker. And I think we've all talked about how if they win their war too quickly, they don't take the Soviet aid, and then they can't do their Soviet recovery aid things if the
Oh,
Republic wins.
yeah.
So it's probably better to send them basic infantry equipment because it'll actually help do less to help them win the war than infantry one, and it's cheaper for you to buy. Like 200 rifles to 200 rifles, no matter
Hmm.
how old they are. So I'm saying
Okay.
I'll put probably 5 factories on M1903 Springfields, which are my basic infantry equipment. They're obsolete. I can already produce M1 Garads in the beginning of the game. And then I'll sell those to you at a discount when you're getting close to support Spain's loyalist. And you can just, or you, well, yeah, you're gonna have to buy some ahead, and you can just put all your civ, whatever you got at that point, to buy them, and then sell them all in Spain. And every 200 or 250 or whatever can get you like 20 army experience. So it's really good. Just send lots of old rifles to them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Okay.
Um, let's see. I only have one MIO for light aircraft. Oh yeah, the United States has terrible MIOs for aircraft. It's ridiculous. After getting used to playing as like communist Germany, and they have amazing MIOs for everything, which is a little ridiculous and almost seems like it's catering to the Veracruz or something. I am stuck with horrendous MIOs. Like my only aircraft designer is a long range light aircraft designer, which I mean, I guess the range is a little. The starting bonus is just 10% range for small and carrier planes. And the first line of traits, I can either choose 10% air attack uh, for small planes, or I can upgrade medium planes, even though it's a small aircraft focused designer, supposedly.
Hmm.
It can also provide range to medium planes, so it does light medium planes. And I actually, in order to get the second small trait, which gives ground attack, I have to take 2 traits from medium aircraft. It's or actually, there's another light one that requires only one medium trait. It is a terrible MIO. I don't like it at all because it constantly forces me to like take traits from medium aircraft in order to upgrade my light. It's not. It's the traits aren't
Hmm.
terrible. It's just that it's not very focused. You know,
Yeah.
like it encourages me to just put all my designs into this one MIO and try and get it really big and use it for both my light and medium aircraft. And it's like a little bit of a jack of all trades, king of none, except that it's really big, so it's not terrible, but it's still not very good. Uh,
Hmm.
it is more efficient on America's political power economy, because then if you're going to do spend 25 to get a special trait, size 6, like America is always short on political power, so there's advantages, but there's some serious disadvantages too. Hold on. Um, there's a lot of naval production nonsense I gotta worry about. Yes, I'm not producing any TAC, any CAS, any carrier. I know. Start off with a slight rubber and chromium shortage. Chromium. I should be producing chromium in Idaho. Oh, only one. Wait a second. Don't you sell chromium down in Mexico? No, you don't. No, you don't. Who sells chromium? Oh, the Soviets. That's right. And they start off reasonably. What does the Soviet Union start off with?
Turkey.
Yeah, you never know which way Turkey's going to go.
Hmm.
They generally don't. I've never seen them go communist on their own. Although I think maybe if the Balkan Federation forms, that might push them towards it.
Yeah.
Even the time I saw them do that, they remained non-aligned, even though their communist support was like 60% due to this decision that Bulgaria kept spamming. The Soviets start off with civilian economy, which isn't great, but they don't start off with the like huge debuffs to Turkey. And if I want the Soviets to be able to stand up against, who's going to threaten them? Probably the UK if UK goes fascist, or Italy or France. Like any one of those powers could go fascist, or Poland, or the Baltics. Like they could actually, since viewers, I set Japan, the Soviets, and Germany to go communist. Oh yeah, the Spartacus League will probably eventually go to war with the Soviet Union. There'll be an intercommunist war, more likely than not. So the proletarian dictatorship tends to ally the Soviets, but Spartacus League is like an anti-Stalinist. And even though Trotsky is not a Stalinist, there will be a civil war. I mean, not civil war, a war between communist factions, even though they're
Hmm.
ideologically pretty aligned. So yeah, yeah. I could buy chromium. I don't think does Germany have chromium even for sale? A little bit. How much does Germany have? One. No. Yeah. Um, I suppose it's theoretically possible. Oh yeah, Greece could go fascist if they do their, that they have two fascist passes. Greece. They have a hidden one that goes off their democratic path, and they have one that's visible if they go non-aligned first. If they like rig their
Yeah.
elections in favor of the king, they can go fascist and like join the Axis. But if you look at their focus tree, if they resurrect the Magali idea, which is like they always do in the Democratic path, then they get the fascists will very often start a civil war, and if they win it, then they try and reform the Byzantine Empire, and that's how they get those focuses
Hmm.
below that say they have to be fascist, even though they're below the Democratic tree. They could also recruit the fascists
Yeah.
off the king's government and just go fascist that way. But yeah, Greece goes fascist a surprising amount of the time in this game. They
Hmm.
seem to like their fascist and their communist paths. I see them go one of those a lot of the time. So be
Yeah.
interesting to see what Hungary, their new Austria and Hungary have new focus trees, and they're like overpowered. They can like invite like half of Central Europe into a faction, and that's how they stand up to the Nazis in a historical game. Um, let's see. Put my 36 divisions in army for a second. I'll have to break them up into at least 2 armies later, but just to remove that warning. No divisions in basic training. Uh, Copy my National Guard division. Um, hmm. Okay. So you took a look at like all the focuses that like strengthen and weaken the Catholic Church, right? And like what boosts climate support and stuff, because that's Mexico's focus tree is a bit of a doozy.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Because yeah, I need a second here anyways while I'm messing with like the various um I got decisions, I got um hmm, before I forget, manage subjects or not subjects, occupied territories. Kingdom of Hawaii
You're
released
releasing
as
Hawaii?
oh yeah, I could make it a pull the garrison first because I'm not sure what happens otherwise. My default law local autonomy, which would be applied to Panama, um, Puerto Rico, Hawaii, and the Marinera Federation. I should probably wait a day so all the like garrison disappears. Do I have equipment that's currently on the garrison duties? Yeah, it takes a day for it to kick in. But yeah, I can release Hawaii because there is a core, like there is a tag for Hawaii, an independent Hawaii, the Marinera Federation, and Puerto Rico. They can all be released as puppets, which I'm gonna do, like probably tomorrow because they just pulled the garrisons, and as soon as the garrisons leave, I'm gonna release them as puppets. I'm not sure if that's necessary, but well, no, hold on. I'll save it. I'm not sure if all the manpower I put as garrisons there, if it like uh I'm not sure if it disappears into thin air if I release them as puppets, right?
Hmm.
It might require reloading if it all disappears because I'm not sure what happens. I'm at 247, 78 manpower. Uh Shoot. Problem is I was gonna switch a bunch of infantry to use nothing but basic infantry equipment at low priority and train people up with nothing but basic equipment. parity, I guess. No, because Nat. I misspelled this. Zer. Yeah, they should be higher priority. Um, yeah, so I was switching everything to like a template that has nothing but basic infantry equipment enabled. Because I'm just gonna run exercises, not choose through equipment. Um, I don't really need to worry about planning or even heat conversation. I see. I've got divisions like in San Antonio. Uh, on Wake Island, all over the place. There's just all these random like 3 divisions in Hawaii, or those the Line Islands, not Hawaii. One on Hawaii. Um, there's naval bases on each of the Line Islands. That's interesting. Yeah, the U.S. empire is already big by this point in history. Um, let's see, 247.78. Okay, I'll try releasing the things now and see what happens. Interestingly, I could play as like Hawaii. It would be
Yeah.
amusing. Terrible. Uh, wait a second. The Line Islands go to Hawaii? Is that new? I just last time I did this without thinking. Guam and Wake Island. I see. Uh,
Phoenix Island as well.
yeah, Phoenix doesn't have any tags, I don't think.
Hawaii.
Oh, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, Phoenix, Midway, Line, Johnson Atoll, and Hawaii. I see.
Oh, Johnson Atoll and Midway. So will you have no Pacific Islands if you release those too? Oh, there's still
I'll still have some,
the
just not
yeah.
anything that can be released as a puppet.
Okay.
Uh, Joseph Poindexter is the guy who's in charge of Hawaii. If you're releasing this, that's got to
Yeah.
be some kind of inside joke. Whereas you get a guy who's a financial expert in charge of the Marinara Islands, which is cool. And Puerto Rico, I don't think I saw this guy. He must be a Ramley General, but he's got a unique portrait. Pablo Alvarez, a university rector and quartermaster general. So research speed and like airbase construction speed, but only if the AI chooses to build air bases, which they won't. So basically extra, unless the game goes really late, and then maybe they'll build a nuclear reactor or a radar site. But I've never seen them do it. The AI like never builds those things. They just do factories, and they don't even do it efficiently usually. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, check the new leader of Hawaii. And actually, yeah, I did get all the manpower back, so that was the right choice to release him on the moment the game started, before I even paused. Yeah, check the unique leader of Puerto Rico, Pablo Alvarez. He's actually got like pretty good traits.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Research speed.
Mm-hmm. Um,
All right.
hold on. I think last time I did all this nonsense with pushing a bunch of divisions to the Texas border with Mexico, and it does allow me to keep an eye on the warlord where his divisions are, but I only need like one division on each place that he controls.
Yeah.
Uh, one, two, three, four, or actually really one. I could easily do that with just like four divisions, I think, which is all I have nearby. Um, all right,
All
so
right.
I
I should probably be going to bed
yeah,
in a
any
bit.
second now, yeah. I'm just gonna split army in half here. Um, yeah, you gotta go in a second. Uh, you have some dockyards at the start. What are you actually building ships with them, or
Right now they're making convoys. Should
um,
I switch them to something else?
yeah, probably. I mean, especially if I'm flooding the market with selling convoys, there's not going to be like you're not going to be able to sell convoys
Yeah.
very efficiently. And even if I wasn't
Coastal
flooding them,
defense ships and early destroyers are all I have.
yeah, yeah, the coastal defense ships are pretty inefficient for like any kind of naval combat. Hold on, I'm thinking. Probably destroyers. Um,
In parallel?
hold on. These two there, and what?
I can
Hold
still
on.
build a convoy.
Yeah, I would put two in parallel and have the other two.
Should I cancel my convoy?
No, what I would do is I would put it at the bottom of the queue and only have one dockyard assigned,
Yeah.
and and for efficient like well efficiency or not yeah, I would have if you put your fleet on exercises, some of them will take damage from training accidents. When they go into repair, it will pull from the thing at the bottom of the queue, which would be the convoy, and then when it reassigns the dockyard, it'll put it on the stores because I think the convoy already has some progress, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, and then it'll just freeze that progress in, and if you ever get a third dockyard, which you'll eventually, either you'll conquer or something, then you can recontinue that convoy down the line, or when you're done, like building a bunch of cheap destroyers, because you could probably put well, you might want to redesign it after the first, so you might just put the first two on one copy, and then when you have a little naval experience, you can. Well, you probably don't have the tech. I don't know. I'd have to. I don't know. You probably don't have the tech to build better stories than that, anyhow. But you could consider it like redesign the stories after one or two of each has been made. But yeah, for now, just the stories. Because the more ships you have, the more naval XP you can get from exercises. And that'll let you get your naval spirits and doctrines and fun stuff, right?
Yeah.
um, and I'm just sticking divisions down on the border, saying divisions to exercise, and I'll have to
What
assign army leaders later. What?
admiral should what admiral should I put in charge of my fleet?
I think you have like a choice of two admirals,
Yeah,
right?
an old guard and a media personality. But the old guard's skill 2 instead of skill 1.
Oh, you're talking about for like you're not talking about chief of navy. You're talking about the admiral, right?
Yeah, just the fleets that I have.
Probably the media personality or what? Well, what are the skills of the old guard guy? Probably doesn't really matter unless you have naval combat anyhow.
Um, one, one, two, three
Yeah, I suppose you. I don't know if
of
that
the
he might
guard.
use less supply, but what am I saying? Your ship's gonna have plenty of supply. I would. The media personality guy is and I don't know if leadership experience gain would affect naval experience from exercises. I don't think anyone's
Yeah.
ever tested that. But yeah, I would just the media personality is a really it's a great trait, and generally you want to train level admirals from level one in terms of combat because
Okay.
then you can give them a Spirit of the Naval Academy and they can roll extra trait points every time they level up. And Old Guard is a terrible trait for your navy, so like oh, in the first
Okay.
level is really cheap. So in terms of actual combat, the media personality guys got way more long term potential.
All right.
And yeah, in terms of exercises, I don't know if it matters at all which one is assigned or none even. So you might as well
Yeah.
use the guy who will be in charge of combat. So in case you forget down the line. Um, yeah, I'll have to. I got divisions scattered all over the place. I'll probably just stick them on exercises. I should probably not bother moving them around. Well, I did stick them. I'll have to give them out leaders who are good at logistics. Because they'll just go to Europe probably as volunteers as soon as they can, and then they'll all come back to Washington D.C. after when my Civil War breaks out. So I have literally no reason to worry about where I put them, except for like hot heat and cold acquisition. Like it's currently cold in Boston, I think. Yep, very cold. -7 Celsius in Boston on January 1st. It's randomly generated. I don't think
Yeah.
it's historical, but I don't know.
Well, yeah.
Um, cool. Let's see. So you're doing construction one and basic machine tools. I'm
Yep.
producing old rifles, and I'm gonna have to figure out what's going to happen with my ships because I need to stick probably to just screen ships until I withdraw from the London Naval Treaty. Um, there's a lot of random events I can experience that will affect my focus war strategy too. With like I can lose or gain support in the House of Representatives randomly. Um,
Mm.
yeah, and bu- 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 I'm just training up a bunch of like National Guard divisions. I should use the same trick I was showing you because I have, let's see, three. That guy's 31, so I have enough approximately 270, 288 plus 30, 318. So I could have about 10, 16, but then 4. Uh, cool. So I've got a dozen divisions training up. I'm
Is
already
it
in low manpower warning because I start off with only 1% recruitable pop factor modified down to zero point 0.5. What are you saying?
is it cool if I head out and like you can
Yeah,
finish
okay.
up like whatever you need
Sorry.
while
Yeah. Yeah, that
you can keep it open and
Oh no, well I'm
unless
almost
you're
next time we load it up, I'll put the finishing touches or maybe off camera and off
okay.
line. I'll do Sorry, I kept this partly so that you could ask any questions and we could work out a strategy and then I got of course the United States is a pain in the rear to set up and you weren't asking anything. Uh yeah, so you're cool with like Uh, yeah. So I guess the considerations are the strength of the Catholic Church. You'll get events very early to strengthen them. So as soon as you get
Yeah.
the first one that strengthens them, you can grab anti-establishmentarianism. You don't have to do it right away though, actually, unless you weaken them again. You just don't want them below assertive. So, and I think you
Yeah.
eventually get a second event, so you could actually worry about other things. I think with the other guy, he got that event. I'm like, grab it because I thought he could get weaken it again. So yeah, you could just Jeff and Maximo control the army, and like at that point, you've got all that stability. And what would you do? I guess abolish capital punishment so you could get state education in your first additional tech slot. Um, yeah, and there's a lot of strategies, but the sooner you push south, the sooner you start really snowballing because all these little South Central American countries have build slots and manpower and factories, and you can like puppet them and annex them, or just annex them outright and just turn into a
Yeah.
giant. So Mexico can be fun. Um, cool. I saved it. Let me do it one more. Or wait, huh? Did I not? Yeah. Um, let me save one more time because it does weird things sometimes where if you overwrite. Okay, it's all saved. I didn't know if you were doing anything on your end. Folks on
Nope.
YouTube, I know this has been like a 2 hour strategy and micro session. So I'll just call this episode 0 and put in the description that you should probably skip it if you want excitement. And I'm sure a lot of people watch it or anyways and get annoyed and never watch the rest of this because that's my luck. No one ever reads the descriptions. But yeah, um, maybe next time you're free, if you're free later this weekend, maybe we could do Age of Wonders, or we can pick this up now that I'm almost done with all the US like starting micro and talking through the focus tree and thinking as I go, because this is me soon after I woke up and I'm like not fully
Yeah.
alert and still drinking my morning coffee. So it's
Yeah.
nothing but
I'm also a little
dregs.
tired,
Yeah,
although tired because I'm heading to bed soon.
yeah. So
So there's
what?
I definitely missed a little bit of what you were talking about, I think.
Yeah, we
But I
can
think I got the gist of things.
discuss it again later. Uh, folks on YouTube, sayonara, goodbye. Take care of each other, be kind yourselves. I mean, always find a guy and start to lead you home.